And as far as like training to failure, were you leaving that for just certain sets, or was that something you did regularly?
Yes and no. I've always trained on my own pretty much. I've never really had a training partner, but the gyms I train in, you know how it is. The guys and girls in the gym know you, so you can call somebody over for a spot. But in terms of failure, I've never trained to, well, not catastrophic failure because we don't want that. But I've never trained to like absolute failure, right? I'll train to a point where I'm not able to complete any more reps with good form. So when my form starts going, that's it for me. And I may use things like forced reps if I've got a spotter, sometimes drop sets. But generally, you know, with the compound exercises, I'll go right down to sort of fairly low reps, fours, sometimes threes, doubles. And when I feel that I'm not going to get another rep with good form, or, you know, things are getting a bit wavy, I'll rack it. And that's just how I've always done it. So yeah, I mean, it's never been like a huge priority that I have to train to failure. I think once you've got to a point where you're no longer able to do something with good form, you've probably stimulated the muscle enough.
When did you feel like you had enough for a specific body part? Like you felt like, okay, I taxed this muscle to the degree that is, or that I feel is going to be most effective for the goal that I'm after. Let's call it muscle growth. When did you feel like you had enough for you specifically? So like how many exercises would you do like on a typical chest day or a typical back day, for example? How many overall really hard sets did it take for you to be like, okay, that's it for this workout, for this body part?
Again, it's probably quite low. Probably like 2 sets. So let's say, for example, I'm squatting. I'll do a couple of warm-up sets, which don't really count. And then I'll go in my first set. I might do 8 or 10 reps. I'll pick it with a weight I'm certain that will get that rep range with. And then second set, I'm obviously increasing the weight each set. Second set, as I progress through my sets, I'm obviously increasing the weight and dropping the reps. You know, let's say I started off and I got 10. I'll increase the weight and I do a weight that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get 8 with. And then the last 2 sets, I'm looking at 6 and 4. And I'm like, okay, let's put something on that I think I can get 6 with. And then the same again for my very last set. I guess the way I approach it is every workout I try and obviously this isn't linear, but you're always trying to increase, right? So, and I just put small increments on. So I'll find the smallest weight in the gym, it might be like a kilo a side or something. And I'll just add a little bit and just take baby steps. And obviously that doesn't progress linearly forever, but it's kind of been how I've approached things. And obviously you get to a point where you plateau and you might need to back off and approach it from a different angle or a different perspective, or, you know, do something to invoke some kind of variation.
So the 10, 8, 6, 4 were that what you would call like the hard sets, or was it really the 6, 4 and then?
No, only the 6 and the 4.
The 10 and the 8 were kind of like warm-ups for you.
The 10's easy, right? Yeah, the 10's always easy. The 8 is, I guess, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably like a, I don't know, 6. You know you're going to get the reps kind of thing. It's kind of a warm-up, but it's not. So if I'm, let's say, for example, if I'm squatting, I'll start off maybe with 100 kilos. Or let's say I've done my warm-ups, start off with 100 kilos, and then I might put on, I don't know, 130, 140. I know I'm going to get the reps with it, but at the same time, I don't consider it a warm-up because it's still a moderately heavy weight, you know? And then from there, I'd go up to sort of the weights where you really have to kind of focus and make sure you're all locked in and no sloppy form and all the rest of it.
Okay. When you talk about the 10 and the 8, then basically they're still hard sets. You're comparing it relative to how the 6 and the 4 felt for you. That's like you're picking up some really heavy loads there. So that's why
100%, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the 10 and 8, you know you can do them, but like if you compare them to your last 2 sets, the 6 and the 4, the 10 and the 8 are not a walk in the park, but they're kind of a light jog in the park.
Gotcha. So they're still pretty close to failure though for you. Like they're close to the point of, or is it more like these are just prepping me?
They're kind of just prepping me, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, so if you could, let's take the 10, for example. I'm curious about these details. You might be able to get 15 if you really pushed it or grinded it out.
Oh yeah, I could probably crank out 20.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the 6 and the 4, that's like almost max effort, 6 and 4. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Maybe with a spotter, I might get a couple of extra reps. I'm not going to be doubling that rep range if I really dug in. I say I'm not. You potentially could, but there's probably risk of injuring yourself, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of draw the line at. Have I done enough to just do what I need to do? Or do I just want to keep going and potentially hurt myself?
Gotcha.
So there's that risk and sort of benefit scale that you have to look at.
Especially with the 6 and the 4 rep range, it's obviously much heavier loads than the 10 and the 8. Like if you were to grind out a 10, for example, before you get to the 6 and the 4, right? When you're pyramiding up, you're doing pyramid sets, right? Like you're adding load with each set. The 10 and the 8, realistically, if you chose a load that you couldn't get 11, you chose a load that you can only get 10. Well, that's really hard still. But if you chose a load where you can only get 6, I don't know what's harder. I mean, they're both pretty much max effort. Have you experimented with that? Like, or did you just prefer the 6 and the 4 max effort versus the 10 and the 8?
I prefer the 6 and the 4. And
Okay.
yeah, this goes down to what people prefer, right? There's that whole thing of people say, that what works for me, right? And I kind of think that obviously everyone's different genetically and they respond slightly different to different things, but across the board, the human blueprint is pretty similar, right? So I kind of feel like if you take any training method and you apply it to any human, give them the right stimulus, give them the right nutrition, give them the right recovery, they're going to make progress, right? Obviously, that progress level differs from person to person, but generally everyone's going to progress, right? And I think what it comes down to is what you enjoy doing as well, and that depends on like your sort of your mental approach to it and how you like to train. So for me, for example, I'm sure I could do loads of volume and drop my weight and do loads of reps, and it probably would work, right? But I just don't enjoy it. I mean, I've tried stuff like crazy stuff like 100 rep sets and stuff like that, and it's just not fun for me. It's good, it's very challenging. I personally prefer pushing myself in terms of low reps and heavy weight. That's just my thing. But yeah, I think lots of different approaches would work for most people to a decent degree, and you probably only need to kind of specialize and pick out specific stuff when you maybe get to a certain point where you really want to start maximizing. But yeah, it's very much, I think, for me, based on what I like doing as well.
During your competitive years, when you were leading up to the World Championship titles, what was your ideal training routine? And did it change from season to season in order to improve certain aspects of your physique?
I mean, it changed season to season in terms of bodybuilding and powerlifting. So the training I do now is almost identical to the training I did back then. Nothing's really changed.